this is too raw for TV, man. You know, we're pretty much halfway through the NBA season, and despite all of the anticipation and the expectations and the projections and the assumptions that the mainstream media made prior to the beginning of the season, the Lakers sit at approximately a 500 record as we speak, right? And look, I knew that the Lakers were not going to be great because part of it's their age, part of it is what they were showing us during the preseason, part of it is that Russell Westbrook is like the worst fucking fit for this particular team that you can imagine. But I didn't know they were going to be this bad. I mean, despite the fact that they started off with the easiest 15 game start schedule in the history of sports, really. Then you look at the first 40 games of the season that they played, 26 have been home games. They played more sub 500 teams than any other team in the NBA. But despite all of these gimmies, they still sit just one game above 500. I mean, I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news. I understand Laker fans, you have to still believe in your team. I understand that. But right now, I mean, you look at the history of the league, man. There's only a handful of teams with a poor record that won a title. One of them that comes to mind is the 78 Bullets. They were 44 and 38. But part of that was because of injuries to Phil Chenier and Bob Dandridge. Phil Chenier was injured for the entire, I think, for the duration of the season. Bob Dandridge was hurt for much of the season, but came back toward the end. And I think they had something like a 500 record, but then they went on a run going to the playoffs. I don't. That's not going to happen with this team. Um, they've had AD. They're still a 500 team. Without AD, they're a 500 team for the most part. But I want to focus on Russell Westbrook, man. When it was announced that the Lakers had interest in him, it really confused me. When I heard that Anthony Davis, LeBron James was following what Russell's wife on, was it Twitter? I was like, okay, what the fuck's going on here? Then when you hear the rumors that he's going to be traded, I still didn't want to believe it because it just didn't make any sense. But when it became official, I was like, what is going on here? Like what? I'm trying to figure out what's the angle. So then I found out, that they're going to use him as as a spot shooter, a 3 point shooter. I knew failure was in the cards. I never ever had any doubt that this team was going to fail. None. Russell Westbrook in his prime is the type of player that was box office. Okay, like when I say box office, I mean as far as excitement, as far as putting up numbers. He give you the 30. He'll give you the 25 to 30 points. He'll give you the 10 rebounds, the 10 assists. If you like triple doubles, if you like the guy doing that on a mediocre team or an average team, he was your guy. He give you, the explosive dunks every once in a while. You know, if you like a guy that plays with passion, uh, plays hard, the cliche, yeah, he was your guy. Um, but I also knew something about Russell Westbrook. He's not the type of player that's going to excel as a traditional point guard. He doesn't have the point guard eye, nor, quite honestly, the IQ to be successful in that position. I know his limitations. And I also knew that once he started breaking down athletically, that was going to be all she wrote for him. And that's happened now. That's happening now. Athletically, he is declining. We see it with the missed dunks, the missed layups, the vertical leap is not quite isn't what it once was. And once he lost those powers, you really saw how mortal and how uh, hell, I want to even say inadequate he is when he has to rely on other things. He never worked on his outside shooting. He never worked on his game, and that's one thing that Russ. That's Russ's fault. That's one thing that is his fault, and he has no one else to blame for that other than himself. Um, at the end of the day, it's a shame, man. It's a shame that we're witnessing a guy just fall apart. The closest I saw a guy fall apart like this that I can remember was Mitch Richmond, but this is even worse. This is worse because we've seen a guy go from being a legit superstar, at least as far as putting up numbers, last year with Washington, to a guy that a lot of people think may need to come off the bench. And I was talking to one of my subs last night. I think even if Russell Westbrook agrees to come off the bench as a player, I'm starting to think that he's out the league by 2024. He's out the league. Because what does he provide for you? He's not a shooter. He can't shoot threes. He's turnover prone. Um, his quickness is going to get worse and worse with each year. Um, unless he gets to, you know, take some potion or something. You know what I mean by that? I think his days of being a star are over. His days of being to me a starter in the NBA are over and are coming to a close. And I think playing with the Lakers, man, with playing with LeBron James, playing with all of this attention and scrutiny and the constant criticism, no matter what he does, it's gotten to him. It's gotten to him, and um, we're seeing evidence of it. I've never seen anything like this before, man. I really haven't. I've never seen a player fall apart like this. You know, the guy will come to the court, hands shaking, just lose the ball out of bounds. You know, a lot of these turnovers he's getting now are because of pressure. The pressure's getting to him. He don't want to fuck up, and he's fucking up. And you know, one thing I will say: if you treat the media like shit, when you are down, they will kick your ass, right? And that's exactly what's going on right now. All the time when when he treated a lot of people in the media like trash, talked to them like they weren't anything, you know. So it's an old saying, man. Be kind to those people who you run into when you're on your way to the top, because they're the same people that you're gonna have to interact with on your way down. And yeah, man, I think Russell Westbrook is done. I think he's done, y'all. He's done. So, you know, I don't know. I just you can just watch him play, man. He's just this has been the worst season for Russell Westbrook that I've ever seen. Like as far as consistently awful performances. Either he turns the ball over 5, 6, 7 times, terrible, inexplicable turnovers, or the guy just cannot put the ball in the basket. He's open. He's open most of the time. It's not like it's a lot of these shots are contested. They're open. You know. But tell me what you guys think, man. It's a fucking disgusting. Tell me what you guys think.